So first, what actually we are going to talk about is the so-called diversification of finances. What does that mean? It means trying to build a festival from different sources, not just from one financing. Usually what we have, the situation is that we have a lot of public funding in our budget, but we have like little of our own resources, we have some of the private sponsors, but making parts of different funders more equal makes us really stronger, because if one of the funders pulls back their support, we can still carry through the project, for example. If we base everything on public funding and 1 year we don't get national or grant from municipality, we're in big trouble. So it's good to think ahead and maybe to think how to also bring other sources to our festival. So that's the first reason. Other reasons are that there's like a growing number of people applying for funding, so there's a big competitions, and the money available is not growing as fast as the people asking for money, so it's good to make a plan B. So we also have a small market, so income from ticket sales or revenue from selling our products is also a very small number. And one other thing is that people it's difficult to compete sometimes with the offer that people get by the click on the mouse at their home, to bring people out of their homes and to bring them to our organization. So these are some of the reasons that we should keep in mind. So if we look at these numbers, this number we see that the culture has quite a big budget. A little less than 2% in European level is actually one of the highest percentage in national budget, but still for the programs for, let's say, running NGOs in culture, it goes from these 172 millions, it goes about 6 to 8 millions. So it's a very small percentage that is there for us. Okay, I made like a short calculation of what the usual cross-cut of budget of NGOs would look like based on the information of the companies that I worked with, so I have the knowledge about the structure of their budget. And as we can see, like the main donors are public donors, country, city, and EU funding is also quite important in the budget of organizations. So this was just like a short statistical introduction so that you get a picture. So what are the potential sources we have for financing our festival? It's public funds on the local, let's say city, national, EU. So instead of listing up all the organizations that we have here in Slovenia, I brought you a list with the links to the pages. I would say for a film festival, the most important, of course, is the Slovenian Film Center that also has a public call for festivals. Unfortunately, there's a very small amount for it, and there are like 3 to 4 large festivals that eat most of the money. But there are ideas that the strategy of Slovenian Film Center would change, and they would divide public call for small and large festival. So maybe in the future that could also be one of the opportunities, because they would offer smaller amounts, but not put the big and small festivals in the competitions. And that's interesting information for you. Then on the national level, that's Slovenian Film Center, but on the local level, actually in Slovenia, there is no organization in any city that would be specified in the film field. So you have to work around it. You have to, usually when you have a film festival, you try to get money from cities by trying to get support for other activities, for workshops, for side events like concerts, theater performance that are also part of your festival. And in a lot of ways, that is how you work around the system, if to say so. Also with like a lot of European funds or foundations, because there is of course the media call, which is specific for festivals, but also, for example, Youth in Action or Grundtvig is targeted at different aims. But still, festival in that case is not the result, it's a mean of communication, a form through which you achieve other goals important for the funders. So basically we could say in writing application for public call you need a lot of creativity, a lot of ideas in how to sell your idea and how to find common goals, and looking just for budget for festivals is basically a very small percentage of what you're supposed to do. So there's one more thing I was planning to tell you about the European funding. As I said, there are the media call, the Youth in Action and Grundtvig, which are the most popular. There's also a call named Kultura. The thing is that with the year 2013, there's one scheme closing and other opening for the period of next 7 years, and the focus of this is changing. If till now we had like the promotion of intercultural mobility, circulation, intercultural dialogue, we are now shifting the focus to like a problem of fragmentation of market, digitalization, and one is like creating comparable statistic data. So it's a completely new focus. We're now used to like selling this exchange of cultural experiences, intercultural dialogue, but now we will have a difficult time getting finances for projects that have this focus. So that's one of the threats or maybe of opportunities that we were talking about. Okay. So the next one is private. We have companies, foundations, and individuals. We will tell a bit more about each of them later. Then we also have income from our own activities and strategic partnership with other organizations. I think is also a very important aspect of bringing in new resources, maybe not financially, sometimes also financially, but with human resources, with technology, with infrastructure, with knowledge. So it's a good thing to think about how partnering with another organization can be a benefit to our festival. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so there are also some weaknesses that I haven't mentioned. As you see, okay, Ljubljana is the center of Slovenia. It has the most money, but also the most organizations. So, on the one hand, it's really hard to produce culture in like smaller cities, but on the other hand, sometimes there's less competition. So maybe it's easier if you have a good project to persuade the committee to support your project. But a lot of times, it's a problem that if you're not an organization that is stationed in the city, you can't even apply for the funding, so again you would need a local partner or something like that. Then as I mentioned, okay, the money, as you saw also on the picture before, the amount of money is decreasing, and also applying for like this smaller and smaller amounts, it's also a very long bureaucratic process. It takes you a lot of time to describe exactly the goals that you are fulfilling, the strategy you are applying to make them come true and so on. And in doing that, there's a lot of like falling apart of what you really want to do and what you're writing and doing just to satisfy and convince the financier that you will get money. So sometimes it's really dangerous that you lose your own focus because you try to adapt so much to the focus and the mission of the public holier blind. So maybe the future in public resources is associating with different fields, not just focusing on culture, but also linking culture and education, social security, and so on. Because for now, the ministries are working very far apart from each other. They are not talking to each other. Even last year, when we had the ministry that was combining culture and education, there was basically no change in intertwining these two fields. So, the other one is future possibilities opening up of public institutes. There's a lot of initiative, if you call it initiative, from ministry, they're encouraging NGOs to collaborate with public entities, but on the other hand, there's absolutely no incentive to public entities to collaborate with NGOs. They think if they open their space, that's already a collaboration. So I think that more combining with program and also giving part of their funds in the form of time of their employees, money for promotion of events should also be invested in common projects of NGO and public sector. But that, of course, is a very huge change of system that will have to occur here. Okay. There's always a small percentage, or sometimes it can be quite, if we take Cliff, for example, quite a lot of income comes from sales of tickets, but there are always limitations. First of all, most of, if we say festivals, NGOs are registered as non-profit organizations, which means, okay, you can sell tickets, but you can't use the money for anything else but your own activity. And there's also the tax limit that you cannot earn more than 25,000 euros per year unless all your activity are taxated and so on. So you have to be careful about that. As we said before, there's a small market, and again, if we put a realistic price on the offer that we are giving, there's a problem that we will lose our audiences because the cost will be too high and they will lose interest, or they simply won't be able to afford to come to our events. There's also partnerships with other organizations. As I said before, it's not just exchange of money, but a lot of other benefits. It's knowledge, infrastructure, equipment, and so on. So instead of renting, maybe we can use equipment of our partner and save some money and use it for paying screening fees for the films or something, for example. So, okay. Okay, now we go to the private funds. First, about the individuals. There's a big, you can't call it a debate really, but we all know the system of individual donations in the social sector. You get a bill for paying to UNICEF, Red Cross, Caritas, and so on. Do you think it's possible to transfer the same model to culture? Would you pay if you get there's a festival, donate, pay a bill for 10 euros? Nobody tried it really, but I'm a bit skeptic. I think it would take a lot of time, a lot of resources to build up a base that would bring you enough money to cover the work, the expenses that you would have just by sending out the bills. It is an idea, maybe some organizations could try it, but I'm not really a believer, though there were some cases abroad where organizations have tried it, and even gain some money this way, but not in Slovenia, of course. Okay, for now, each individual, the legislation enables you to give part of your annual income tax to donate it to charity. That's one of the things that we mentioned yesterday, that maybe if you can't charge entrance fee, you could offer the visitors of the festival to fill out the formula on the spot and so become your donor through this mechanism. Also, volunteering as a form of donation of individual is a possibility. So these are like just some ideas, but the most common I think is the one where like organization addresses the visitor of the event and says, okay, there's no tickets, so we have a box here, so please donate whatever you can, whatever you think is appropriate. The second group of the private sector are foundations. In Slovenia, we have 42 foundations. Most of them you haven't heard of yet. About 15 are the ones that are like open for general public, but the problem is that they are very focused, either on legacy of a specific artist or field of art, or on the other hand, they are very localized. Like for example, we only support young writers in the region of Celje or something like that. And in European scope, there's a lot of possibilities and opportunities, and I think we're a bit lazy in finding these possibilities, because there are only some like really large funds that we all know, like European Cultural Foundation, like Erste Foundation, and Mama Cash, for example, or something like that, that a lot of people address. And on the other hand, there are a lot of smaller that support like research or really more specific topics. But there's on the first link, there's like a really huge database of foundations that maybe it's useful to search through and to get some ideas, maybe for smaller projects, for development of the project, but it's also a possibility. So now we're coming to companies and donations to companies. First, what we have to make a clear distinction of is the distinction between donation and sponsorship. A lot of companies don't make difference between the two. They don't understand the difference. Legally, donation means that companies cannot get anything in return. You cannot even publish their logo, because then they get promotion and it's already a sponsorship. So you have to be really careful about that. Existing situation, from legal point of view, companies can donate up to 0.5% of their yearly profit. You would say that's nothing, but if you think about some budgets of the companies, maybe it's not so small. But the thing is that less than 10% of 80,000 companies in Slovenia use this possibility. For them, it's like tax deduction. They take away some taxes to them. The problem is that there is some bureaucratic work with it. But when I was talking to companies trying to get these funds, a lot of companies don't even know that this possibility exists. Or they say, oh, it's so little amount, we don't have time to do the paperwork for it. So maybe if you have a good campaign, target some specific companies, that's also a possibility, because the interesting fact is that this 10% that use this possibility, That's about 8,000 companies. Over 6,000 companies that use it cross the limit. They donate more than just this limit. Because I guess once they get the mechanism starting, it's easier for them to donate to charity. Okay. Because one other thing why I'm stressing this difference between donation and sponsorship, since 2000, there has been, different authors are writing about the change of mentality of managers. Before, there was like this old boys school who had the feeling that they have to return something back to the community, they have to give part of the profit back to a local or like a wider region. And now these new boys, so-called, is like they are already from school, everything is profit-oriented, everything has to have return. So it's other forms of returning to charity. So it's on us to start thinking professionally, to start thinking like marketing people in the companies do, adapt some new strategies and start working it as a professionals. And since if we compare the amount of donations to sponsorships, 86% of money given to NGOs is through sponsorships. Only 14% are donations. So this is, I think, where the future is. The fact is that in Slovenia we have a non-existent sponsorship culture. So unfortunately, NGOs, festivals will have to also inform companies to come with the creative suggestions and ideas that will be more than just, okay, we have a festival, would you be our sponsor? We can give you a logo on the posters, in the catalog, we can put the logo before each screen. I don't know, your hostesses can be present at the festival, we can put a logo on tickets, on everything. That's not enough anymore. We have to be more creative because on the one hand there's no knowledge or no interest in the side of companies, and on the other hand there's a big competition. Companies get like a lot of searching for sponsors is concentrated on the largest, most visible, most popular companies. And they get over 100 requests each day. And we have to find a way how to stand out and try to get their money. I would say that in the current situation, some statistics, these were made, I think, in 2009. There was a research on sponsorship culture in Slovenia. And they said that about 30% of donations, I'm talking about donations, are under 1,000 euros. So these are really small amounts. And only 20% are over 5,000 euros. So to get a big sponsor is really difficult. I would say for a large festival that reality, in my experience, is at around 3,000 to maybe 5,000 euros in cash. It's a lot easier to get other forms of sponsorships. Of course, there's always the possibility of getting one large sponsor that will give you, I don't know, 50,000 to 20,000 euros, but I would say that the average number in 5 years that we were getting sponsors for Inovateka, for example, the numbers were between 3 to 5, and also the other festivals I was working with was about the same features. Okay. First, it's maybe a bit backwards, but first let's step in the shoes of companies and try to see what the most commonly detected criteria of the companies to select an event are. Most often they choose organization from local level. Why is that? First of all, it's easier to control the event that you're close to. You know it better. Sometimes even people employed in your company are linked to the event. You can easier participate in the event. Your business partners may be part of the event. So it's much easier, and also on the other hand, if you have a narrow local community, local environment, you can achieve more with less money given. You need less money to make a difference if you choose something local. I would put here as example in Krka, or it's a medical company here in Slovenia. They donate 3.7 million a year for sponsorships and donations in culture, but they only donate for their local environment. They have their own choir, their own gallery. They even have a donation day where all the workers go and help in local NGOs, for example. But they say that by staying in their local environment, they also motivate their employees, they connect with their buyers, so it's easier for them. So somehow it's easier to understand. But again, in all of this, they have on their page, maybe if you check it out, they have stated the goals of their company. It's healthy life, it's family life, and they say clearly, when you send this request for donation or sponsorship, we make sure to define clearly how your project is related to the goals of our company. So they're really specific. But they are one of few companies here in Slovenia that are so exact. It's like insurance company Triglav, now for the third year I think, gives out a public call, and they select from all the projects that come to the public call. So that's basically like for us small organizations, one of the only ways how to even approach them. You can just think, okay, now I'm going to ask them if they have donations, something like that. If not an event from local environment, then it's the other part of the scale. It's big, very well known, and usually I would say in Slovenia with classical art connected events. It's like opera, theater, something like that, rarely alternative forms of culture. That's it. They like to, they prefer, not like to, but they prefer short-term projects that have clearly defined start date, end date, goals, so they know exactly in what period they're going to get the return on investment, they know that the project is feasible, that there are going to be some results in relatively short term. And the other thing is, if the project has a wide and diverse financing portfolio, which means they have some public funders, some private funding, their own resources, then the sponsor knows on the one hand that probably the festival is well established and other people support it, and also they know what we said before. If one of the sources falls out, the festival will still happen. They're not going to lose their money. So before you address a possible sponsor, you have to do a lot of self-analysis first. As we said before yesterday, the thing that we were doing, knowing yourself is the first step to be able to persuade also other people, to tell clearly who am I, what's my mission, what are my long-term and short-term goals. Then we now have to know exactly what profile of people we are attracting, we are addressing with our festival, because the first thing that the marketing of any company will be interested is this target group in any way related to the target consumer of our company? Are these the same people that we are trying to sell our product to? So we have to define this very clearly. Who are other sponsors? This means that the company wants to know is he or she in a good company. Are the other sponsors very like established companies, brands that are respected? So what kind of image is going to transfer to them when they're like one of the sponsors of the event? And on the other hand, they want to know how many sponsors is there, because being a sponsor in marketing terms is a way to avoid the usual advertising channels. It's not to have an advertisement in the newspaper or on TV, on the radio, not to have your own billboards. It's trying to communicate with consumers on some other level. So if there's too many sponsors and they're like one of 100, nobody will notice that they are participating in the project. So it's really important to keep the balance, like to set a limit and say, okay, we cannot afford to have 50 sponsors that give us 50 euros, then they are not sponsors anymore, then we have to organize that some other way, because they will not get what they want with us being, so packed with sponsors. The more information you can provide, the more, the more firm is your argument. That, if you can say yes to this and this screenings, usually students of, I don't know, this faculty of second and third year are coming, or something like that. The more you structure or define them geographically, it's a bit easier here in Slovenia because we are really small, but the more information you have, better, because for example, we knew that we have a lot of people, working people, aged from, I don't know, 25 to 35, that's our main public. But also we were working very hard with children, so we could say maybe, okay, we can also, their parents can be target group, but no, majority of children coming to our festival were coming through schools. So it would be a bit irresponsible and lying to the sponsor to say, yeah, we have a lot of children with parents coming because we have, I don't know, 12 slots of animated film for children. But parents are not coming with them if mostly during the week it's schools who are bringing the children to the festival.
But do you actually track your audience? I mean, how do you know that most of them are 25, 35?
One year we did also Ankita.
The questionnaire.
Yeah, questionnaire. But otherwise there are different categories of the tickets. You have students, so you know that if someone has a status, then of course they will use it. So there are some parameters that you can, by categorizing your tickets, you can get information by putting out a questionnaire, by observation. 1 year we had a volunteer whose job was only to count people on the event that was not with tickets, like round tables, openings of the exhibitions. So make sure that you count people. Of course, a lot of companies, or rarely any, has their own mechanism how to count. It happened to us 1 year. Nokia was our sponsor, and their method of counting if their investment paid back was counting how many times their name appeared in the articles connected to the festival. We came to the meeting and they said that their goal was not met, therefore the next year they decided not to be our sponsor anymore. And their name was in the name of the award. And it was funny to us because there was a lot of coverage, and then we asked them to show us the list of the media that they were following. And there were like main newspapers like Mladina and Dnevnik were missing or something like that. So their instrument was somewhere failing. So make sure to know what is the mechanism that your sponsor is using to measure how their money is returned. And a lot of things you can do on your own. You can do your own counting, and that is why it's important to get back to the sponsor after the festival. So when you have all these answers, you can, like, this is the first analysis that you define your common goals, who are the people that you are both, you and your potential sponsor, targeting, who are other sponsors, and so on. So you have to prepare all the answers that a sponsor might or might not ask to you, but if you have good explanations, you should use it. Go to your sponsor to maybe have a plan B if they say, no, we can't give you money. Not just to say, okay, thank you, and walk out of the office. So maybe it's good to think what are the forms and possibilities of sponsorships. Okay, it's not just money. As I said before, and as you will see, discounts, materials, equipment, and stuff like that can build up a really important proportion of your budget. For example, the last year I was working at Animatica. Our money flow was around 120,000 euros. The additional value of discounts for hostel, print shipping, media sponsors and stuff was additional 30,000 euros. So if we would give so much money, it would be difficult for us to collect another 30,000 euros. It would be difficult to make a festival as it was. So this is a very important part of your budget that should never be underestimated. It can make a difference. So never stop thinking about sponsorships only as getting money. So let's see what are the forms that maybe we can get from companies. First, of course, is financial support. Also, if there is a material, if there is a service, the service that you have to have at your festival, maybe with the discount, you can bring in like a very important value. So the second thing is supporting good service and infrastructure. Okay, you have to send out 500 invitations. Maybe a company can donate 1 hour of their workers' time and help you pack the envelopes. Maybe they have their own mailings and they will help you and put your mailing to their shipment. Maybe 500 envelopes in their campaign of sending, I don't know, 50,000 catalogs to the customers is nothing, but for you it's a benefit, it's something that you get from the company. The other form is so-called purchase-triggered donations. That, for example, is if a company says, okay, for each purchase of our product, we donate €0.50 to the certain company. 2 years ago, there was an example of such collaboration, a children puppet theater, and the company Gorinka that makes chocolate here in Slovenia. They had, for each bought chocolate, they donated €1 to the festival. So that's another example. Okay, so the next category is with banks and credit cards. It's like every time you use a credit card, a credit card company or a bank donates some money to some purpose. I put up an example of American Express, who I think it was in 2003 or something like that. They had a American-wide campaign that for each use of credit card American Express, they donated a certain amount for renovation of Statue of Liberty. They increased the number of people using their card like 4 times or something. I think it's 3.5 to 4 times. And of course, enough of money for renovation was collected because they targeted their campaign to project, to cause that is a really important national, like symbol, to something that is really important to American people. So the response was really amazing. Then it's licensing. I have second thoughts about this strategy. I think it's could be a bit problematic. It's actually a sponsor gives you money, so he can use your logo of your company, because they want to improve their public image. It's exchange image for money, but I don't know. It depends, of course, on the company. It depends on circumstances. Direct marketing is a form where you have, for example, a game or something, and you collect information about your audiences, about the buyers. So basically, it's enabling a company to get a database of people that they can use later on for selling their products, their services to them. Then the other is voucher collecting schemes. It's, for example, you get a coupon at the festival, and with that coupon you get two products for the price of one, for example, something like that. The aim is to bring your audience back to the shop of your sponsor, to make them buy their products. Sweepstakes with benefits. For example, it's you make an award, like we will donate 5 TVs. You have to send us a bill of purchased product, and in that way, company gets information about buyers because they have to leave their database. I mean, their contact information in exchange for competing for an award or something like that. So, like, or maybe tickets for your event, for your festival, might be the award that buyers are competing for, something like that. Facilitating giving. For example, to make charity easier for people. It's like now when we have Euro, it's a bit more difficult, but let's say, for example, Pula Film Festival and hotels in the city make an arrangement that they put a jar in each hotel room. Dear guest, if you have kunas left, donate them for the festival. Don't bother changing it back to euros or something like that. That's an example. Also, with this facilitated giving, we see, for example, in shops there's a lot of these boxes where you can put dollars that you don't use anymore. That's the way to, like the Bank of Slovenia helps to change dollars to euros and helps to get Caritas, for example, money that is lying around. It facilitates buyers to make a donation. Volunteerism, we talked about individuals. I mentioned that a company might encourage their employees and say, okay, if you volunteer for a festival of migrant film, every Friday you have to work 2 hours less. Like, they donate you, for example, part of the working hours of their employees or something like that. Or if they are making a service that you need, maybe they can donate their working time to help you do some of your job. And that's also the way. There's also one I haven't put up, exchange old for new. For example, you need chairs for an open air screening. And you can arrange with the company selling chairs that each buyer that brings chair to their store buying a new one gets some kind of discounts, and all the chairs collected will be donated to your organization, for example, something like that. The next topic I will talk about is innovative approaches to sponsorship through something that theory calls crossover promotion strategies, kružna promocija in Slovenian language. It basically means using media or sponsor to promote your event. So how can you combine forces in new and creative things? And these are maybe some ideas of what you can offer, like different, new, fresh from offering a logo on your poster. And it's not just offering to your sponsor, but also you getting something out of it. So first is coupons. For example, if you have like a joint coupon, it promotes a product and it says if you bring it to the festival, you get t-shirt for free or something. Company gives, you don't have, I mean, if you have to pay for the ticket, of course, that's the most obvious, but you can think of something else. So, company is launching a new product. They will print anyway. They will send their advertisement to 500 households. And if you manage to put like information about your festival, there's a big support. So you can put it on a bottle, on the etiquette, on the paper packaging. You can like use different forms of how to put information about your festival to product of your sponsor, and use their like system, their dispatching system, how to bring information to a lot of people, because putting additional information and using the same distributing channels, it's really, really not that much of a problem for company, and it's a big opportunity for you to do that. And also, a lot of these actions might have so-called hidden agenda. Like, for example, if you have on the etiquette, you have, okay, on the one hand you have information about your festival, on the other you have a sweepstake. And again, you can build a database from the product to, again, for the company and for you to contact the buyers later to promote directly to them the next year or something like that. And also for the company, the benefit might be the increase of sales because they want to support your event. There was a research made in America that 8 out of 10 buyers notice and prefer companies that donate to good purposes. So that's something you can offer to the company. You will stand out from other suppliers from your competition by joining to good cause or something.
Is there maybe such data available for Slovenia? How many people would prefer to buy?
No, such research is not done in Slovenia. The only research that was made for Slovenia is the one I mentioned in 2009. And it showed that we have no sponsorship culture, and the big problem is also in the people that ask for sponsorships, because in the NGO sector, thinking about sponsorship is talking about selling your integrity to commercialize and stuff like that. And I think that's something that also we, the NGO organizations, will have to overcome in our mind. Start talking business, if we say so. I am not trying to say that we should put a logo and a sponsor on each corner. It should be done very delicately, but we will have to find a way to attract companies, because the future is not in public funding, it's in private fundings. It's the only way I think we can go. So, I think the key question here is who is the people that we are targeting, what is the company and the product we are selling and how we are doing. Some examples. Each year at the Lviv Film Festival there's a stand of the sponsor Bar Cafe. They are offering free coffee to the guests. Nobody minds getting a free coffee during 2 screenings of the film, for example. Another example, a concert at Križanke, a lady visitor gets a free sample of, I don't know, shampoo or something. I guess you won't mind. But if you come and you are being like manipulated and you feel like you were sold to the company, if it's like 5 minutes that you are listening to the speech of the hostess or something, of course it's annoying. And nobody wants to do that to their audiences. Nobody wants to put a logo on every step and make a festival of Bar Cafe, not a festival of migrant film, for example. So it has to be thought really well through. Let's show you some examples of what I think is, okay, this is the stand of the Lviv I was telling you about. I'm sorry about the pictures are very blurry. The top picture is food at the opening of the festival. These red things are Swiss flags because we had a Swiss retrospective in focus and Swiss embassy was paying for the catering. And this is all the promotion. The things to pick up food with were little Swiss flags. So it was functioning, it was subtle, it was, you know, there are some companies also in Slovenia, of course, everybody is bombing them, but if we are able to offer a creative approach, something new, fresh, and persuade the company that with some extra work, with some extra input, they could get a lot of more out of investing money to the sponsorship. It's better than if they pay for 50 posters or billboards all over Slovenia. But unfortunately, it's our job also to educate the companies because we are far from being there and they would know it, like generally speaking. Okay, so we have now answering the questions about us that would interest company. So who's our target audience? What are we aiming at? Who are our other sponsors and so on? Then we were talking about possible forms of what can a company give us? How can we advertise our partnership? And now with all this information and ideas how to persuade, before we go to the company, of course it's good to know a bit more about the company that we are visiting. Of course, reality in Slovenia is that when you call a company trying to set up a meeting, you have exactly half a minute to get their attention. So you have to think really well through and then to open the doors first a bit so you can send an email. And maybe then when you call them, they will be willing to listen to you for more than half a minute, maybe take 5 minutes, and then the right person will be talking to you. And then, of course, it's meeting them and pitching your idea, presenting your festival live. About our festival, the key information I would like to give you here, you can read the questions you have to ask yourself, is it's really important to set value to your festival. How much are we worth for the company? And it's not the same as our budget is 200,000 euros. It's value that you calculate from these questions. The value for the company. Okay, we are important for you because we target a very specific group that is only a part of the people that usually you target a bigger crowd and only one part of it. And this is your key consumer, and this is why our event is very important for you, for example. About philosophy, values, their marketing strategies, you can learn from their webpage, you can learn from their advertising campaign, you can learn from the design of their products and so on, from their services. Then maybe you've been working or you know someone in the company that is partner of the company you are targeting for your new sponsor. Slovenia is really small, so in this aspect it's good because a lot of times you can get inside information from people you already know. What is the company planning for the next year? Are they launching a new product? Are they having a new campaign? Are they in really bad financial situation and it's not worth using 5 minutes of your time getting their attention? This is all information that helps you a lot. Then it's really important to pinpoint the person or the department that you have to talk to. Sometimes you can get in contact with the secretary who's really glad to talk to you, to listen to you, but is absolutely in no position or in the wrong department to decide about sponsorship, about anything. It's always good to check out that maybe you're a new festival, for example, and you probably all know the companies that you were collaborating with in the past. But it can be awkward if you call a person and you start introducing yourself to the company and they said, yeah, we were your sponsors 6 years ago, and then nobody called us ever again. That's a situation you don't want to, you know, trying to explain why not and why now you're returning and so on. So make sure you know about the history of your collaboration. Okay, so a lot of information and insights that are important to you. You might find it in annual reports. How much money a company makes, how many products per year they launch, and stuff like that. It's a lot of information that can help you. And you start to draw up a budget and try to make a plan how to guarantee the funding for it. When we said that, okay, usually first you make a call, and if you're happy, they say send us an email and write what you want from us. And again, you have like a very narrow space to make the reader interested, not say, just another application. So these are the 4 key elements that your application should include. It shouldn't, like the cover letter should be really short, 1 page maximum. Altogether should be no more than 5 pages because nobody wants to read through 15 pages of how your festival is great, what you did in the last 5 years, who did what and is now working with your festival and so on. In the request for proposal or collaboration, you have to state very clearly what you want from the company and what you are offering in return. To be able to do that, you have, of course, to research, do a good research about the things that we spoke before. Then it's good also to present the planned budget of the festival, so the sponsors know that if you're asking for, I don't know, 5,000 euros, it's not that your project is 7,000 euros altogether. It's, they have to get, on the one hand, the picture of how large your project is, on the other, how much money you have already secured, but maybe not to go into details about who you're getting money from, but more about what are like the key aspects of your budget. We are inviting to the festival, I don't know, 20 international guests, therefore we will have to cover the expenses for traveling and accommodation in the approximate amount, so on and so much. So it's good that they see that your costs are really well thought, that your money won't be just like spent and thrown away, and that the costs have a really good connection to the content that you are building up with your project. And of course, it's good if you are able to show the potential sponsor that the team that is working on the festival, working on the project, is the team that will be able to carry out what goals you set for you. And if you, it's easier maybe if you already have done some editions of the festivals, but sometimes, for example, with the projects where you are doing a project for the first time, you have to show with similar projects. We have done that and that and that in the past, therefore we have knowledge, we have the team which is capable of doing what we are promising. Maybe it's also useful to write about the past experiences with sponsorships. We, for example, did the campaign that included like a promotion of our sponsor, this and this way. We achieved this goal, and we addressed like a targeted public of 5,000 students with this campaign, for example. So to be able to write a really well-targeted like proposal, you have to research. I will mention it now, though maybe it should come later, with closing the deal. Never try to avoid making a partnership without a contract. It might sound funny, but I had some bad experience and I learned my lesson. So even when you are like dealing with a sponsorship for, I don't know, opening catering or something like that. I once had a situation, we had a deal, okay, there's 1,000 people coming to the opening, or 800 to Galosova Dvorana in Cankarjev Dom, and there was this company that was supposed to give sweets for the opening event. We had an association of cocktail mixers that prepared everything, and we got like 3 plates of sweets for 800 people on the day of the opening, like 2 hours before the start, and like shops were closing down, and I had like, no paper to say, okay, the contract says you bring this and this many pieces to the opening. And the reason they didn't provide it is that they had all the stock in the store, in the storage outside of Ljubljana, and no one really available to get the products to the opening. So we had an action and emptied the store next to the Cankarjev Dom and like improvised big time. So it may seem stupid for like not that much material in the eyes of the company, but again it was, you know, not in their interest. It was too much effort had to be put for the outcome or something. So we had no leverage to say, okay, cover the costs of the materials. We had to buy in one of the most expensive stores at 9 o'clock in the evening. You know, so even if it seems stupid, make a contract. The other example was only summer tires were provided on the car that was supposed to be used for the festival. So it was snowing, and it's really hard to go in the snow to get a person from Venice if you have only summer tires. So there was nowhere in the contract, it didn't say that cars provided will have to have winter tires. So it's the details you have to take care of. Okay, so first, that might seem really stupid, is not asking for donation. Who would forget to ask for a donation? It happens. I was helping with the festival, not really working on it, but just with the, like getting the materials from sponsors. And there was a group of young artists trying to get some building materials for their installation from the company. As I've worked before with this company, I was like, come on, they always give the material in this amount. And I called the person that I usually talk to. And she said to me, yeah, but I'm trying to get the information from them, what they want from us. You know? They are telling me what they are building, why it's good for us, how they will promote us. But after 2 weeks of talking with them, I have no idea what. Do they need how much material, what do they need? So it's not maybe, you know, in trying to persuade, you forget maybe the most obvious thing. The other thing is asking for too small amount. So this is like we said before, maybe putting up a portfolio of 50 financiers giving us 50 euros is like not very smart thing to do. I mean, it depends what you want to achieve with it. But knowing the organization, maybe do a research on their previous sponsorships and stuff like that, you'll be able to estimate better for how much money you can ask. Try to evaluate on the basis of how you can measure the return of sponsorship. We will talk about how to do it a bit later. So you can then estimate better for how much money to ask. In addition, if they put a smaller number than you were expecting, don't accept it. Try to bargain. If you have a good strategy, if you have arguments why this partnership is worth more, if you know how to tell a sponsor, no, this is not 3,000 euros, it's 400 euros because you get this, which is worth 1,000 euros, this, which is worth so many, then you have arguments and you can say, because this is business, this is one of their promotional strategy, and if you know how to persuade them, no, don't buy billboards, support us, and you can show them how and which results they can achieve, then you have means to negotiate. So don't give up too quickly. And again, on the other hand, if they say, no, we can't give you money, think of all the other benefits you can get from them. We've been talking. Can their workers do some of your job? Can you get some infrastructure? Do you need their discount or something like that? So always prepare a strategy and try to like get something out of the meeting. Because if you come to a point where you sit in the same room with the representative of the company, you've come a long way. So don't waste it. Once when you're in a meeting, there's certainly something that you can get out of it, because they're willing to talk with you. Okay, sorry. Not knowing the donor, it's a bit inappropriate if you offer, I don't know, yeah, we have students in our audience to the company who is selling medicine for, I don't know, better moving joints or something like that. You know, you have to know what you're offering, you have to know company so that you don't offer any stupid. And again, if you know that the company is doing bad at the moment, and maybe it's good to know that and to understand that if they're offering you a little, they're opening their door for you, and maybe if you do a good job, the next year they will open it a bit more, and when their economy grows, when they get more profit, maybe even the amount they're willing to give you will grow. So try to understand also in their terms what it means, the offer that they're giving you. Okay? So, always prepare for the meetings. All these negotiating skills are not worth very much if the sponsor sees that one of you is saying, yes, okay, this offer is okay, the other one says, it's not. So make sure you arrange among of you who will talk, who will say the final decision, and try to communicate between you even in a non-verbal way. Not listening and not asking questions. Again, if you are in the meeting, you've got their interest. So try to get new information. For example, we were in the meeting with a bank insurance. trying to get the award for general public. They said no, but the person we were talking to was really interested in our program for children. We saw the interest, we listened what they have to propose, and for 3 years this company was sponsoring the Children Award. So in that meeting we changed perspective, we offered something we didn't really count on it, so try to listen, maybe the sponsor shows interest in particular part of your program, and if they can't sponsor entire festival, maybe they can do a part of it or something. Always have in mind also, okay, you say your organization will get this, you will be promoted, you will improve your public image, but think also what individuals working for the companies, how do they benefit from it? Do they get more motivated because they know that the company is supporting a good cause? Can they invite their business partners to one of your events and show like they are supporting a good cause to their partners, which will improve their image or something like that? Always try to think beyond the organization, but also about the employees and about also the individuals that benefit from your festival and within their company. You can't just come to the meeting and say, okay, we are a festival of migrant film, for example, and we offer you this and this. It's good if we say, okay, we work as volunteers, we work with migrants. So you have to tell the company more about the way, how you work in your organization, what are the values of your organization, because then they will understand how you work, your background, what's important to you, and they might already, if you've chosen the company correctly, they might also relate to that. And that's a good starting point to start to persuade them, okay? We have this in common, you can relate to our organization, to our goals, to our purpose. That's why it is good if maybe we could try to find this way that you can support us, you will benefit from it. It's easier than just starting from zero. Of course, sending an experienced negotiator. I would say that we don't have a lot of experienced negotiators. Even I myself don't count as an experienced negotiator, but experienced in the terms of being prepared, being self-confident, being able to talk, not shyness, not avoiding to send the message through, like being able to perform under pressure, experienced in that way. So not maybe in the field of negotiating for sponsorship, but in presenting, in pitching, and so on. So, measuring effects of the sponsorship. As I said already yesterday, make sure to always report to the sponsorship. And to be able to do that, you will have to think a bit ahead, also during the festival. Always, when you have a festival photographer, make sure that he or she knows these are our sponsors. Our deal was to promote them in this and this and that way. Make sure we have photo documentation of that. If you have to put like little flags in the food, make sure there are pictures of it. So you can prove later to the sponsor, okay, we agreed to do this and this is, we did it. You know? So you have to prepare for yourself material to be able to do the calculations, to report later on. Okay, so posters and announcements in public surfaces. As I said before, it's easy to check how much TamTam or Snaga charges for putting a billboard in public space, and that's your starting point. Media coverage, the same. Advertising space in media, okay. If you put like advert of your company in the newspaper, this is how much you would pay. There was your logo with only 3 other sponsors, so we think this is worth this much. Okay, also on the web pages you have per clicks. most of the web pages have at least basic statistics. So you can say, okay, our page was visited by, I don't know, 2,000 people during the festival and 1,000 before the festival. So we think that by putting your logo on the front side of the front page of our festival is worth this much. So you can make a rough calculation. Because it's always good to try to be concrete, not to, I mean, it's okay, list the numbers, but try to value them. Because maybe it's better, even if the company has their own measures, but a lot of times they don't. So they don't really understand in the money-wise what these numbers might mean. So it's always good to try to value also money-wise what's the value of their appearance at your festival. Okay? Is the question of how to plan a budget. Do we just wait for the costs to come up and then try to find money to cover them? Of course, it's better to plan ahead, to foresee the costs that we are going to have. So first, when we set up a timeline of the project, okay, maybe 2 sentences about the timeline of the project, because I think I left that out yesterday. When you're writing a strategy, I think the best thing is to start from back to the beginning. You know that you want your festival to be in the middle of June, which means that your promotional campaign has to start in the middle of May, which means that you need posters ready for print 1 week before that, and you start, you go to the beginning for each segment of your activities. That's how you get the timeline of the festival, ideally. Of course, usually the reality is that we say, we have a festival in 4 months, we have to do this, and then we go crazy and we... So, if we have this timeline, we can also see, okay, so we have to put posters to print in May, which means that even if we have a festival in June, we have to have some money to cover that expense, because maybe we have to pay in advance, or maybe we get a much lower price if we pay early on. Also maybe for tickets for guests, for accommodation. If we make an early booking, maybe we can save a lot of money. So it's important to think also not just the numbers that we have to cover, but also the time dynamic of our budget. Create a budget that works with your logic, that works with your categories, and try to ignore what you have to put together in the categories for formulary that you have to do for, I don't know, for sponsor, for public fund or something. Okay, always it's difficult because usually there's not enough money even for the costs that you know are coming up, but make some reservations, because usually there's some costs that come up unexpectedly, like a broken car, additional rent of the projector, or something like that that you will have to cover, and it's good to have some amount of money prepared for that kind of things. Round up means don't use only the numbers from previous years, always add a bit more, because maybe you won't be able to bargain the same discount that you did last year. The prices go up, maybe you need more posters, maybe you will have more guests coming to your festival, or something like that. When you're talking about prices, make sure you talk about net value, especially if you have fees or something like that. Always clearly define, is this the taxes included, taxes excluded? It will prevent you from headaches, it will prevent you from quarrels with people that work for a festival, with guests. There won't be any misunderstanding. That's really important, because a lot of time for you it's self-evident, okay, this is the gross number, but then people who are not so, I mean, like with authorship contracts, for example, when you have some young authors, they are not aware that the tax is deducted from that number and then they get lower fee than they expected, and for example, something like that. So be sure that you specify, is this a net or a gross value? It's good to talk with the team, not in details, but about the reality of your budget. Okay, yes, we are underpaid, but for example, you work as volunteers. You have make sure that you provide other motivation on one hand, and make also information about the budget available, so that the people know that you're not throwing away the money for something else and not paying them fee, but you are low or a medium-sized festival, and this is as much that you can afford for a certain category of the cost. And you say, okay, if we want to have so much money for guests, then we can't afford to, if we want to bring 50 people, not 20, then we can't afford to pay them the hotel. We can only bring them here, or something like that. You have to make clear, to give clear information that, okay, paying more because we want to have bags for each visitor, not just for those who buy it or something like that. This means that we can't put billboards. If we are making promotions through bags or through other channels, then we have to cut costs for some other categories.